You and our listeners at this end need to get together, and that includes me, as I learn about all of this. We've been listening to Porticulture Uninterrupted, its various movements from fuse to what? At any rate, tell us a little bit about where you started with all of this.
Well, the initial impetus to create this piece came from a commission for what was called the Berkshire New Music Festival. It was held at Tanglewood and also at Williams College and a few other venues in our local area out here in western Massachusetts in the Berkshires. It was sponsored by BMG Records, and we had, a variety of new music composers and different kinds of ensembles performing. And so originally this was written to feature William O. Smith, who was one of those one of the participating composers in that, and he was the clarinet soloist on this originally. But when I got the situation with the record company that released this, Master Musicians Collective, they had a connection with Richard Stoltzman, so we used him on this recording.
And that was his clarinet work.
Yeah, he's the featured clarinet soloist on this. Also, Bruce Williamson plays clarinet, soprano, and alto saxophones, and Tom McClung is the pianist. He lives in Paris now, though he and I worked together for many years, including a piano duo, which had one recording out. And we also heard some solos from Bob Weiner on percussion and drums.
Well, I thought we might go track to track and review for all of us listening out here what we're listening to from the composer's observation. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in the distance, I might ask, is Bartók lurking over the horizon?
Bartók lurks like a giant presence for all serious students of music composition, as does Ellington and Coltrane, all the great American masters as well. But formally speaking, he's, I think, got a lot of interesting concepts in his music, and I'm certainly not the first jazz musician to have noted that and to have been influenced by that. Coltrane was certainly influenced by Bartók. And anyway, yeah, so there's more or less of an arch form going on here, where elements of the outer movements are similar, and there are 5, right? So the outer ones have some similar musical content, I suppose you'd say, and second and fourth are the more maybe ethereal or moody pieces, and the middle one sort of has a little bit of everything.
I think we need to feed a little more on the ethereal now and then and again. Let's listen to this first track of the movement. Its title is, once again, Fuse.
Yes.
And shall we listen to it, or?
Well, we could listen to a few, a little part of it, and then move on from movement to movement to get a flavor of the different parts.
Very good. Let's do just that, and stand by as we pipe it up, sweet, warm, and happy. Andy Jaffe, What are we listening to?
Well, I guess certainly the main thematic material, obviously it's in 5, and the thematic material is informed by the blues. All the movements are, and it's certainly inescapable as an American musician for that not to be the case, The other thing that happens throughout this piece is there's a progression of tonalities, so it gradually we move through all the different keys, and we also achieve contrast by taking notes that are in a given tonality that we're in and juxtaposing them with the other notes that aren't in it, so that we always have some contrast. If you skip to the very last 30 seconds or so of the whole piece in Movement 5, I'll illustrate a little bit what I'm talking about with regard to the arch form. So if you went to, say, 4:30 of track number 12, Well,
and we'll do that. In the meantime, I might just say for the listeners, we're talking with Andy Jaffe, who has developed this music on commission, and it has been recorded by the Slovak Radio Orchestra with various American soloists. And here is that illustration.
Listen to the very ending here, coming right up. Has sort of a chorale feel to it. Listen right here. Hear the 5 in there? So that quintal sort of, melodic statement at the very end there is meant to be a bookend with the initial sort of driving, more swing-based 5/4. So even though the material on the surface sounds a lot different, one being sort of a ballad or chorale-style treatment, the other being a more aggressive tempo, the material is the same. And so there's sort of a giant mirror going throughout this piece, so that it telescopes into the very middle where all of these ideas coexist.
Let's sample number 2 in this sequence now. The title again is...
Before Midnight Tomorrow. Another thing that's going on here is the juxtaposition not just of tonality but also meter. Listen carefully to this melody. You can hear 4 and 3 working together.
A waltz time 3/4?
Yeah, but then also 4 against that throughout. Of course, you can hear the orchestrations, bass clarinet, and some of these other sort of, I like to call them subterranean doublings that add a lot of color and texture to the music. So it's more about mood than it is about sort of a faster tempo. And then this next makes a transition here into a blues after a couple of cadenzas here that are linked sections. Hear the percussion. Little quote from Stravinsky there.
It's very nice of him to furnish that.
Now, as we move into this next blues here, you'll hear more clearly that, again, the material is the 4 and the 3 working together, but it's more obvious here because there's a more solid, less ballad-like tempo. It's coming right up. One, two, three, 4. 1, 2, 3. The primary meter. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So they're both going at once. And you can have fun with these effects. There are a number of places where you can, actually by having one part of the orchestra in 4 and one in 3, you can often get a kind of a swing feeling generated that no one person is actually playing as a result. Sort of an aggregate effect. Like right here, nobody's playing that. That's the underlying feeling of 4 and 3 going together that way. I showed the drummer one of the Ellington beats from Afro Bossa.
Andy Jaffe, the composer, giving us a feeling for his suite that we have played uninterrupted and now with his footnotes. Well, what next here that takes us beyond Before Midnight Tomorrow?
Well, again, if you can kind of keep that, I'd like to go in order now, I guess, but if we can keep that feeling of that last movement in our mind, we'll see it resurface in the fourth movement. The next movement is called Orb. This is the central movement, and I was talking earlier about the cycle of going through all 12 keys, and there's a little ostinato that occurs here in the middle under the drum solo, which is pretty much the core that generated all the material for this piece. In other words, this piece wasn't constructed by starting out and saying, here's, right at the very beginning, sort of left to right, here's the main idea, we're going to develop it. This piece sort of moves toward its center, and when we get there, I'll point it out, and this is the place from which all of the ideas we've been talking about are generated, and it's a simple cycle that is easily recognized by anyone who's seen the cycle of fifths in their scale book. So the initial part of this movement sounds like a sort of a variation on a blues as well. Little mambo here. And right away into solos. Tom's a great pianist. He lives mostly in Paris now. Tours pretty regularly with Archie Shepp. A variety of other interesting groups that are there in Paris, including Afro-pop groups.
And that's Tom McClung.
Mm-hmm. You know, this sounds pretty good over the phone. Okay, now hear the clarinets coming in with one background. A number of different backgrounds come in on top of one another. We call this a layered ostinato. Typical tension-building device you can find in a lot of Ellington's music, certainly inescapable in Mingus. There are about 7 or 8 different lines going at once, hopefully complementing one another. Now, if we listen a little further, I'll show you this part I was talking about with the main idea of the piece. Of course, one of the interesting things, well, I'll let this go a second. Here it comes. Cycle of fifth. Nice foundation for a drum solo. That's going upside down and backwards in mirror against itself. Story, its background figure, and so forth. And it's almost got a musique concrète sort of a feel to it, you know. The thing I find interesting is you can have these very elaborate structures underlying a piece that you write, and they almost always make a nice framework for free improvisation. This summer at this summer music festival that they have here in the Berkshires called Bang on a Can Summer Music Institute, which is colloquially known as Banglewood, though they're not technically allowed to say that because people from Tanglewood object to the name. They had a concert with Terry Riley, and it was very interesting to see him perform live. It was sort of like almost like a free jazz concert. A lot of energy. Anyway, the main point of that whole digression there is that little main idea of the piece is sort of put in the absolute center, and everything moves out forward to the end and backward to the front to form the structure of the piece, so actually it's more of a cyclic structure than a left to right sort of structure.
Now that next piece of the movement in the suite is a morning prayer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's French word obad. It's a kind of, I think it's Old French, and again, this is more about the sort of a mood-based or sort of emotive sort of a movement rather than the more technically based. Or anyway, the mood is paramount here, and so this connects really with the 3/4 piece that we heard earlier.
We'll listen to it now.
Muted strings. Just like movement 2, it's got a sort of an adapted blues form. Moves right into solos. That's Richard Stoltzman, who of course has his reputation largely as a classical chamber musician, but quite a deft jazz player. The session very well prepared. The guitarist there is Matusz Jakubczyk from Bratislava, and he's the head of the jazz program at the Bratislava Conservatory. And he and I had a small group that toured around the country playing together too. You can hear the call and response element here is structured into the piece. Collective solo. Now here comes the ballad material. Once again in 3/4, forming a complementary piece to the second. One of the inspirations for this is if you listen to a lot of Ellington, especially early pieces like Symphony in Black, sometimes between the recording sensibility that he had and the orchestration that he used and the vibrato and all these various elements that went into his playing, it's almost impossible to decide what instruments are actually playing which notes. If you're transcribing it, it's nearly impossible. Strayhorn called this the Ellington effect. I'm not saying I've achieved it here, but I'm sort of after that sort of blurry, translucent sort of sound where the technical aspects of the tonality are subservient to the blend. Like a painter, you try to use the different colors you have to create a new color. Not a pure one. Sort of a false ending there. People usually think the piece is over when it's performed.
Well, that's certainly a marvelous excursion you've taken us into the heart of your orchestra, your soloists, and you as a composer. Let's go to the closing theme.
And as we go to the closing scene, This is definitely inspired quite directly, not just in terms of technique, but in terms of mood again, by my close association with one of my really most valued colleagues and people I just think the most highly of anyone I've ever met musically and personally is Dr. Yusef Latif. And he and I have had some wonderful conversations over the years about music composition. He's got some wonderful, wonderful records out on his own record label, Yal Records, Y-A-L. And he's certainly taken ownership of his business. He retired from teaching a couple of years ago at age 80, and I saw him after that, and I asked him what he was up to, and his quote was he was busy with other things. And this man is so busy generating new music all the time. He's a real inspiration. And one of his favorite technical resources is what's called a hexatonic scale, which is made up of all major and minor thirds, and among its various characteristics, it contains the harmony that's so distinctive and unique to the chord progression for Coltrane's Giant Steps. And it's symmetrical, and so it's a nice fit for this piece. And it's got the property of having other notes, the other notes that aren't in it make up another version of it. So if you're playing a given hexatonic scale, you're using 6 notes. The other 6 notes that complete the chromatic scale make up another hexatonic scale. So you can definitely work a lot of interesting development things and use the notions of complementary scales, and it works really well. And this is something that Yusef has sort of hit me to, and I've been working on for quite a while. So we'll probably, if we were to go probably to about 3 minutes into this movement, we would probably find a spot right around 3 minutes where we could hear that hexatonic scale in a bass ostinato.
At the moment, we're going to move it forward and cue it in.
There we go. So we're in the middle of some solos here. Because because this movement centers around the notion of a hexatonic scale, I thought it would also be interesting to use hexatonic phrase structure so that as the soloists trade here, they're trading in 6-bar phrases rather than 4-bar phrase. So the rhythm and the harmony then become interdependent. Actually, the whole piece has worked that way. When it's in 4/4, the voicings were in fourths and so on like that. I guess we skipped all the way to the end. I should have put you in a little bit earlier there to hear that. That's all right.
Spontaneous and unrehearsed.
Yeah. Well, there's always got to be an element of that in it. You have to, especially in a situation like a recording session, you have to be flexible, and you have to realize that you're not going to get everything exactly the way you heard it in your mind, but you're going to get something else that's going to happen as a result of people making the effort to play your music. And that part of them that they put into it that results from that is something you can't, imagine ahead of time. So that's always part of the magic to me of any performance, and especially recording sessions, is that element of the unknown to see what's going to actually happen when you get there, how it's going to come out.
I'm talking with Andy Jaffe, and we're listening to his work entitled In Blanket Overlay, the word is what?
Horticulture.
And significance in what way?
The idea being anything with portability you can take from one place to another, and the idea of, different musical cultures impacting and interspersing one another, juxtaposition, I think, of unlike of elements of unlike characteristics in terms of musical style is sort of how that's the challenge of the piece.
All the way from blues to Bartok to John Coltrane.
Oh, why not?
Yusef Lateef.
Yes.
What a pleasure to sit in with you on this night and for you to share with us your adventure.
Well, this is my honor for you to have called me. It's great, and we want to take an opportunity to publicly thank our colleague, Brad Bellows, who hooked us up.
I thank him, too. Andy Jaffe, we'll talk again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Leigh.
I hope the muse is just working overtime for you.
It really is. Sometimes when it comes to making that, the boundary between the muse and the realization, we have to these days go through the medium of the computer. And for someone of my generation, that can be a tad frustrating. But again, hi to all my friends out at Finale, headquartered in Minneapolis, St. Paul. One of my students once referred to that as there are a lot of characterizations, but the computer takes a lot of time, but that's the thing we have to do today. We have to document it this way. When you called earlier this evening when we were setting up the call, I'd actually been working on putting this new piece I'm writing on the computer and trying to hope that my computer wouldn't crash and tell me I'd performed an illegal operation.
I see. Well, you're not under arrest, I'm sure.
Well, that's good. It's always good to know.
Andy Jaffe, we'll talk again.
Okay, thanks, Leigh. You take care now.
You too.
Bye.